think we should be ready to go. All right, well, welcome everyone to the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services FY2027 grants workshop. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a few new faces that we wanted to introduce before we start getting into the nitty-gritty of everything. But my name is Gracie Ann Martin. You all have probably heard a lot from me. I've been the one sending you emails about these upcoming opportunities for learning more about what resources SCDES has to offer. We also have Woody Barnes, who I'll let him introduce himself really quickly. If you can unmute.
Yeah, we cut it off the mute there. But yeah, good morning, everyone. Woody Barnes here, and wow, we're already to the FY2027 grants. It just goes by so fast, but we're glad to put these presentations on, and hope we can guide you through the process.
And then we have Kayla Meyer.
Hey everyone, my name is Kayla Meyer. I joined the office back in August last year, and I work mostly with the K through 12 schools with the Take Action SC program, and I'm also the program coordinator for Be Battery Smart.
And then Savannah Murray.
Hello, my name is Savannah. I run our Don't Waste Food SC program, and I also manage our college grants.
And then I don't know what I just did. Sorry about that. Just a sec. Our fearless leader, Richard, is also on, but I accidentally just muted him. So just a sec. And you will also see that we don't have a familiar face. Our coworker, Stephanie, is no longer employed with SCDES because she retired a few months ago. So she is enjoying retirement. So she was our I am so sorry. I'm trying to get Richard to be able to speak. She was our grants manager, and that position is currently open, and we're going to be filling that soon. So if you have anybody who would be interested in one day working with our team, please send them our direction. But I think I have Richard unmuted now. So Richard, if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself, feel free to. Richard? Not sure if he's able to do so. Well, we'll go ahead and get started, and if Richard's able to get on and speak with us later, then he can kind of introduce himself. But we are going to be going through all of the grants that we have available in our office. So we'll just go over a couple of the meeting logistics. So excuse me for a second. Oh, here we go. Here's Richard. I'll let him quickly say hi.
Good morning, everyone. I truly appreciate you being on the call, and this is no accident. This is conspiracy to keep me quiet. But if you don't hear from me, it's because I've been undermined with the mic. But I am listening, and hope we can have a great morning. And appreciate you all being on the call. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. I think last year we ended up having a fire drill go through and prevent things. So also can people just give me a thumbs up if you can still hear our mic? I just want to make sure that we aren't accidentally missing anybody. Okay, thank you, Sally. So as I said, we have our meeting logistics, so all mics are muted, even those who need to speak. We are going to have times at the very end for where I can unmute folks and you can ask questions. But for right now, as we go through, if you would just mind going ahead and putting your questions in the chat, that way we can make sure that we aren't missing anything. And at the very end, as I said, we are going to have time for questions, so you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. All right, so just a quick outline for the day. We're going to go through and have some coverage over our used oil grant, our solid waste grant, schools and colleges and universities, our waste hire grant, and then we're going to have some time for some questions as well as some discussion about some upcoming opportunities. So for us, we are going to just kind of give you the big picture about why we have these grants in the first place. And that's because our office is focused on trying to reach some recycling goals. So by 2030, we have the recycling goal of having 50% of the material that is being generated throughout the state be diverted from the landfill and go into recycling. So this would equate to a disposal goal of 3.25 pounds per person per day of what is being disposed of. So right now, our current recycling rate is 21.2%. This rate will be updated in by March 15th to show what was for fiscal year 2025 and the recycling rate for that. So hopefully we'll see that number increase. So the 21.2%, that was from fiscal year 2024. And so we get this rate by having counties and cities and businesses provide us with their data. Businesses are not required, but counties are. So thank y'all for getting in that information. So for us to be able to provide these grants, we have a couple of different what we call advanced recycling fees that are collected throughout the state. So every time that a lead acid battery is bought, there's a $2 fee that goes toward us trying to be able to provide these grants. Also with large appliances and new and now used replacement tires, there's a $2 fee. And then for every quart of motor oil, there's a 2-cent fee that is collected. So all of that money can end up kind of helping with recycling efforts throughout the state. And as you all probably saw a few weeks ago, we have just released our fiscal year 2027 grants. And so that is the state fiscal calendar. So starting in July 1st of 2026 and going through June 30th of 2027, that's when those grants are going to be applicable. So we ask that when you are submitting your grant applications, that they be submitted electronically to our swgrants@des.sc.gov email address. The deadline for putting in those grants and sending it to us is 5 p.m. on Friday, April 3rd. So it's always the first Friday of April. You can send it as either a PDF or a Microsoft Word form. And again, just make sure that it's well organized, and we'll go through some tips and tricks later to make sure that you all are giving us the information that we need so that we can quickly evaluate your grant. And make sure that when you are going through the grant that you are, first off, using the correct application for fiscal year 2027. Sometimes the questions can change between each of the years, and that you're answering all of the questions completely. So we want to make sure that we can give you all of your points and that we have a full enough picture to figure out what you are going to pursue. All right, with that said, Woody, I think we no longer have your picture, so if you want to try to put your picture back on again and make sure that your mic's working. There you go. We're going to hear from Woody Barnes about used oil grants. So Woody covers, I don't think we mentioned this, Woody covers the used oil and waste tire grants. I cover the solid waste grants right now. Kayla, as she mentioned, does our Take Action SC and our K through 12 elementary through high school grants, and then Savannah covers the colleges and university grants. And this may be changing as we go forward whenever we hire our new person. So Woody, I'll let you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Grace Ann. Yeah, the used oil grant program has been very successful here in South Carolina. I like the program because, well, for one, I don't get any calls about, there's a drum of waste oil over in the woods that we need to get taken, like I do with the tires, you know. So it's been a very successful program. I can give you a couple statistics here. Cali in calendar year 2025, Santee Cooper reported collecting 489,985 gallons of used oil from just the DIY collections, and then another 364,383 gallons from the 9 non-DOY collections. So there's a lot of energy recovery going on with used oil. You know, used oil doesn't it doesn't go bad. It just it gets dirty. So it can be re-refined. It can be turned into diesel fuel. It can be used in waste oil heaters to like heat up a shop or something like that. So you know, it's got a lot of uses. And then of course the waste oil grants are here to help you purchase the items that you need for clean and successful oil recycling programs. Oh, and by the way, let me mention this. I think we have a special guest on the webinar today, Mr. Rex Norris, the owner of Southeastern Environmental Waste Equipment Company. Rex was gracious in providing me with some new photos for my presentation today. I really appreciate that. I invited Rex to sit in case we have any questions about, say, site design. You know, he's been in the waste oil business a long time and can give you some tips on, you know, keeping your oil collection sites clean, preventing rainwater from infiltrating your sites and filling up your catchment basins, things like that. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Rex, just type them into the chat and we can get them to him. All right. So for FY26, some more historical data here. Last year, we awarded 45 grantees, a total of $713,225. The grants were capped to allow no more than 2 tank purchases per grantee. I think that's been the case here for the last couple of years, that we've had to limit the number of tanks that you can get under the grant. And then the request for spill supplies, we had to reduce those about 10% to meet our budget constraints. So I would imagine a lot of that's probably going to apply to the grants this year as well. Let's go to the next one. So with the oil program, we talk about the model oil program for the counties, and we want the counties to be, you know, collecting the DIY used oil. We'd also like for you to have at least one gas oil mixture collection tank in the county, and then farmer oil collection as well. Each of these tanks, they are a little bit different, and but we certainly would hope that you can have one of each, at least one of each in your programs, and then also means for collecting oil bottles and filters. Next slide. So for the model site, so your used oil tanks, you need to have secondary containment around the tanks. This, to help prevent against spills, or at least to contain spills when you have them. We also like for the tanks to be constructed on a concrete pad and then covered by some type of shelter. We want the sites to have some kind of bottle and filter collection containers there. Bottle drain racks are great to have, because if depending on what you're going to do with the bottles, they need to be drained. And then spill kits and socks. You need those to clean up any spills that you might have. It's a great, obviously you'd want to have those on site and secured so they're readily available. And then a spill plan, the SPCC spill plan. If your site has stores more than a total of 1,320 gallons, then you'd need to have a SPCC plan in place. All right, now here's a picture of a couple of these sites. You can see them on the concrete pad and the covers there. You can tell the tank on the left is for DIY oil collection. The one on the right is for the gas oil mix. your gas oil mix tanks. I don't know if you can see coming out of the top of the little blue shelter there. You see the vent pipe there. So anytime you're mixing, you got gasoline mix there. You need to have some venting. There's the oil filter collection there on each side of the tank, and that's a neat little step there in front of it to help citizens get their gas oil mix there into the tank. And those tanks are also equipped with overfill alarms, so you got a way to prevent overfilling of the tanks. And let's see what else we got. All right, these look great. Again, it's a different type of waste oil collection tank there. You can see the catchment basin around the bottom there with the spill socks in place. And then the stickers on your oil filter bins to help minimize contamination. Depending on who you use, the vendor, a lot of times they'll ding you for contamination charges. So they just want these to have the oil filters. And if they got boxes or trash or anything like that, you'll get dinged for a contamination charge. So we put so having these stickers in place will help deter some of that. And what else we got? Here's another site. You got, it looks like a couple of gas oil tanks there in the back. And again, the stickers and the containment, the socks in place to prevent spills. That one's even got a little battery collection going on there over the right-hand side of the small blue bucket there on the right. And it's perfectly fine to if you want to mix in some things that are typically considered, solid waste functions in these structures that you purchase with your waste oil grant, that's fine. All right. So for the FY27 used oil grants, these are kind of some of the things that we, prioritize with the grant funding. If we can get new sites or expanded used oil collection centers, we're always looking to increase the capacity for collecting the used oil. So those are kind of a priority project for us. Contractor costs, you can get your contractor costs. This is generally for the collection of the oil filters. And then equipment and supplies. So if you need spill buckets or one new tank or things like that, that would come from your equipment and supply budget. And then we also provide, public education is based on population. So it's either $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 that you can apply for your public education projects about waste oil. We also, there's $750 for professional development to help you attend conferences and trainings. And then other costs as funding is available. We'd love to fund more of it if we could, but the budget's just been so tight. We don't do a lot of funding of other costs. But that being said, I certainly recommend if it's something that you can use, something you like to have, there's no harm in requesting it. Now you may not get it, we may have to chop it out of it, but you never really know until we kind of compile all the applications and see what everybody's requesting and kind of match that up with the budget. So if we have the funds available, we're certainly trying to fund it. So no harm in asking for it. Some reminders for the used oil contractors. You need to use the SCDES registered used oil transporters. I know a lot of the folks use the Santee Cooper Gopher program where they pick up the oil for free. Some of the rates, the contract rates, we go by the statewide term contract. So like for your oil filter recycling, $15 per 55-gallon drum. That statewide contract is scheduled it'll expire in July of this year, I believe. So May want to keep out for some new terms about mid-year that come out. And as I mentioned earlier, the grant does not cover contamination charges. Typically, what we see with that is, say you got a 55-gallon drum of oil filters. It'd be $15 if there's no contamination. If it is contaminated, it's a $50 charge. So what you would do in those situations is just request reimbursement for the $15. We can do that. It's not that we just can't cover the actual surcharge for the contamination. All right. What else we got? So oil storage capacity. I just put this in here to remind you, the more capacity that you have on site, it allows for a better efficiency of hauling a used oil. If you got, say, two small tanks or two tanks as opposed to one large tank, it's going to help you in the event that, let's say you get somebody put something in there, some kind of solvent or something that contaminates the oil, and all of a sudden now you got a hazardous waste that has to be disposed of. It's a lot easier to deal with it if it's only in one small tank as opposed to one large tank. And then and there again, the SBCC plan, if your total capacity of the site is more than 1,320 gallons. All right, so for public education projects, these projects, they have to feature used oil recycling. Occasionally we'll get a request to do some kind of publication project for, say, cooking oil, but actually we consider cooking oil to be a solid waste deal. So you would need to request anything like that on your solid waste grant. Can't be on the used oil grant. It's okay to include other recycling programs as part of the project. So if you've got as long as it mentions used oil, if you're doing a flyer or something like that talks about all your recycling programs, that's fine, just as long as the used oil is part of it. And then as far as funding some of these projects, if you want to, if it's a project that it kind of applies to both your used oil recycling program, your used oil grant and your solid waste grant, it's quite all right to split fund something between the two. Just when you send in your reimbursement request, just put some kind of notation on the invoices as to what percentage is going to come from the used oil grant, what percentage goes from the solid waste grant. And then obviously, since I approve a lot of these public education projects, if you need some ideas or want to know what your neighbors are doing, I'm glad to help out with those types of questions as well. Just give me a call and we'll see what we can come up with for you. We have our graphic artist, Greg Glimp, does a great job on designing lots of educational projects and putting the county logos in place to kind of personalize it for your county. And so we're glad to help with those projects any way we can. All right, yeah, oil grant modifications. So let's say you're awarded a grant, and then all of a sudden you've got a tank's leaking, or you got to replace a tank. Well, we do have provisions for granting the funds for an emergency replacement of the tank. So you just request that in writing, how much you're going to need, and we can modify the grant to help you out there. And the other thing is that grant modifications. So if you things are running a little bit behind, or on the project, and you need an extension, we can grant either a 90-day extension or a total of 180-day extension if you need more time to complete your project for the grant. All right, so that's a quick rundown through the used oil grants. Do we want to take questions now, Grace Ann, or we want to put them in the chat? How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, if folks would like to put them in the chat, or if they have a specific one, you can raise your hand and I can quickly unmute you. Or I know that was a lot of information, so if you need to let it kind of sit in and sink in, we will have questions at the very end. Vernon says, thanks, Woody. Thanks, Vernon.
All right.
All right. Well, it looks like we don't have anybody typing in the chat right now, so I'll go ahead and move us on
Shannon.
to the solid waste. Oh, Richard, there you go.
Forgive me for interrupting. I wanted to ask. We should ask if any of the programs out there, are there any issues while we're talking about the grants? Are there any issues we need to be aware about? We need to be aware of, I should say, and any way that we could help or what's going on. I just wanted to throw that out for all these commodities.
Yeah, great point, Richard. So if throughout if throughout our chat, or excuse me, if throughout our presentation y'all would like to share any of your thoughts or any of your challenges, again, please feel free to do that. And again, we'll have time at the very end for folks to unmute themselves, but you're welcome to type it in the chat as well. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and move from used oils to our solid waste grant. So our solid waste grant in the past has had two categories. And actually, I did just see that Leslie put in the chat, anybody have a vendor that accepts oil bottles for recycling? So folks feel welcome, or y'all are welcome to put those answers into the chat and we can discuss that a little bit more. But with the solid waste category, or excuse me, solid waste grant, we have two categories typically. So our category 1 or our general recycling grant, it's going to be similar to what we have done the past few years of having people apply for up to $15,000. So of that $15,000, $5,000 could go towards outreach and education. So if you want in your grant to specify that 5,000 of that would go towards outreach and education, we could cover that. We also are asking folks that if they would like to have professional development, you can request up to $750 for professional development this year, which in the past, we have automatically given it, but this year we're going to ask folks to actually request that in their application. And excuse me, for our category 2 grant, we had a plan in place, but then due to some other things within the agency, we've actually had to postpone releasing that grant. And some of that is due to we are wanting to have that be more focused on creating hub and spoke program infrastructure. But we want to have a couple more discussions with the counties and cities to see, what that would need to look like and how best could we work with everyone to make sure that the money is being used in the wisest way. So whenever that category 2 grant does become available, which we're hoping near July, you will be able to apply for both. So go ahead and apply for that general recycling category 1 grant, and then keep your eyes peeled for an announcement for the category 2 one. So for our general recycling grant, this one is focused on trying to help us achieve the recommended state recycling and disposal goals, so that 50% by 2030 of waste being diverted to recycling. It tends to be more focused on residential or commercial recycling activities, and as I said, in total you could get up to $15,750. So that would include both public outreach as well as professional development and having material that could go towards equipment and supplies. So the items that can be covered under that general recycling grant are equipment and supplies, which we're going to go over some examples, as well as outreach and education. Items that could not be covered under this are going to be reoccurring cost. So that would be, making it to where you would be covering a vendor cost or an income for your staff. Since we can't guarantee that this is going to be something that's going to be offered from year to year, we just don't want you all to get in a pinch with not having enough money to cover future costs. Also, items that are related to collecting trash, so things like compactors for trash as well as garbage cans. And then since we do have a grant that is focused on used motor oil, we this grant typically does not cover that. So in terms of equipment, we're going to go through a few examples of those. So we have had counties and cities in the past ask for roll-off containers of different sizes that could be used for tires, different types of recyclables, as well as yard waste. Excuse me. We also have had folks who have requested having curbside recycling carts. So some places, they're needing to replace their fleet of recycling bins throughout their area. And so each year they'll request a certain amount of money that will go towards helping them replace some of those old ones throughout the coming years. Also trailers. So, for example, in the city of Travelers Rest, they had a pilot glass collecting program that they this past year asked for a trailer so that they could go from different locations and farmers markets to collect glass. Also within equipment, and just to kind of provide clarification, signage can both fall under equipment as well as under the outreach component of your grant. We want, since signage is very important, we want to make sure that you all have the ability to put that in place. So even if you request some under outreach, you can also request some under your equipment. And so this would be trying to make folks aware at your convenience centers that you have the types of material that you're collecting, where to dispose of that material within your facility, as well as what times you're open. We do, as Woody mentioned, have a graphic designer on hand, Greg Glimpf, who is very willing to work with your local government to try to update your signage. So this can be done for free. You don't have to have a grant with us, but what it comes down to is more of you being the one to pay for that material once Greg has designed the sign or the pamphlet or whatever else he has come up with for y'all. Other types of equipment could, again, be signage just in a different format. So whether that is for a food waste recycling area or having kind of the trifold boards that you can move around and not just be stuck on one type of one area in your facility. So other examples of equipment can include e-scrap collection boxes, battery collection boxes. Our grant, instead of focusing on used motor oil, it does cover cooking oil. So if you have containers for that, you can use the money towards balers, but it would have to be for recycling. Also compactors, as I mentioned earlier, but that would have to be for recycling. Some folks, especially since South Carolina is really growing in terms of the residential side with having multifamily housing, you could get multifamily housing bins or kind of tote bags. Also having building up your attendance buildings, if you need to replace those, having different types of cover for material or creating concrete platforms, creating an area for a swap shop, that's either a covered area or a shed, and then also getting some backyard composting bins. So for our education and outreach side of things, we do have multiple campaigns that are focused on that are focused on battery safety, working with businesses through our smart business recycling program, our Don't Waste Food South Carolina program that is focused more on preventing food waste throughout the state. We have our Recycle Right SC, which is going to be trying to educate folks on what they should be putting in their recycling bin. We also have our Recycle Here SC app, which kind of goes along with Recycle Right, but that is a free app that you all can advertise, and we would really love for y'all to use it as a resource and get it in your outreach material for folks to figure out where they need to recycle throughout the state. We also have our composting, recycling naturally program, and our Take Action SC program, which is South Carolina state curriculum for sustainability. And so with all of our outreach material, you all can focus on trying to highlight those campaigns as well as any other types of educational campaigns that you have within your county. So some of the things that can fall under that $5,000 maximum amount that's requested for outreach and education are things like billboards. So again, Greg can take a design and make it your own and put your own logo on it. We also have a lot of different flyers that our agency has created, but also if you all have some different events that are coming up, like as you can see, Richland County, this was one that they used. We can have Greg kind of take what you all are going to be doing in your specialized event and create a poster or flyer for that as well. Here are some examples of some of the magnets that we have done. So I think people have sent these through postcards, or they have gone and worked with homeowner associations, or taken these events to try to get the word out about what can be recycled in your area. Also, this is a good example, or excuse me, a good thing for working with apartment complexes and having kind of an idea, or excuse me, having an item that can be left behind and not thrown out at the end of the time. People are less likely to throw away magnets that have information, so they can be used between different tenants. We also have calendars that people can end up doing. So I think Kershaw County tends to do a yearly calendar. This one is from 2024, but Greg can update them for 2026, and it has information about recycling and where to go in the area. A great way of bringing attention to your program is by having car and roll-off wraps. So you can put this on your recycling truck or vans that you have, fleet vans or different cars to go to events and again catch people's eyes. Excuse me. Also, one note with the car and roll-off wraps, as well as with billboards, when you are requesting those items, we need to make sure that you have the size that you need, so that Greg can kind of work within the specs that that whoever you're going to be using to purchase that material can actually use that image. Also, banners and posters are a great way to get information out. So those pop-up banners that you can either put on a booth if you're doing an outreach activity, or to have on the floor as you're welcoming people to your office. That's a great way of bringing catching folks' eyes. As well as we have a lot of different educational pamphlets from which you can choose, or if you would like us to design one, we can do that as well. And these are all different examples of things that can be purchased through that educational and outreach portion of the grant, but some other ones could include doing radio announcements, doing informational notepads, or recycling tote bags that are reusable. As I mentioned, posters, having coloring books, which we do have some at our we do have some that if you ever are in need of coloring books in a cinch, we can send your way. Also doing video advertisement, and some locations throughout the state, along with the app that we have available, they have independently done their own recycling apps. And so that could be something that you could put money towards. But again, you're welcome to use our app and save some money that way if you'd like. So for us, as I mentioned, for our Category 2 grant, this is to be determined in terms of kind of the details of what that's going to look like. We do know that we're wanting it to focus more on developing a hub and spoke system infrastructure. So to help us with kind of narrowing down how the grant needs to how the grant needs to function. We are going to be having some upcoming webinars. So I realized that I forgot to move a point from this slide, but we are going to be showing those dates in just a sec. But before we do, I just wanted to kind of refresh everybody's memory on what we mean by hub and spoke. So essentially, if you think of a wheel, or I try to do an example of having the yellow Pentagon be kind of a larger county, and then the triangles be some smaller counties or some cities. We want to have it where we know that some counties have both more space as well as maybe more financial support and more county council support to be handling certain types of material that maybe some other counties around them don't have as much support for it. And so to help those smaller counties as well as make it more affordable for that larger county, we want to try to partner together a couple of different counties or cities to start working together to collect maybe one type of material or a couple of different types of material, and have it to be where the smaller cities or counties can collect that material and then funnel it and bring it to what we are considering our hub, or a larger city who can kind of be better able to handle that material. So again, just think of a wheel where you have a hub that's kind of that middle part that's supporting everything, but those spokes are going to be what's kind of funneling in material to that hub. So again, with the goal of having a hub and spoke program set up, we're going to try to work together to share limited funding that we know is happening across the state. By having a hub and spoke program, it is going to improve cost efficiency as well as open up more opportunities for recycling. And it makes it a little more effective and efficient in terms of what infrastructure you have in place. And our Solid Waste Management Policy Act does promote regionalization. So this is one of the ways of trying to kind of accomplish that part of it. And hopefully in doing this partnership, we'll have less contamination as well as increased recycling rates. And so in some of the ways in which we're thinking that the hub and spoke program is going to kind of play out in the end is, again, partnering local counties and municipalities together, as well as maybe some local organizations, and then having SCDES be involved. Also trying to increase accessibility to recycling throughout the state, and having more focus on education. So right now our focus has been on composting and organics recovery, but we are open to other priority commodities. So that's kind of going to be where this next step comes in, is that since we don't yet have the grant finalized, we are hoping to have some more meetings or workshops that are going to be focused on just speaking on our hub and spoke programs. So on February 19th, if you want to go ahead and mark your calendar, we are going to have a virtual kind of interest meeting about hub and spoke, setting up a hub and spoke program. And we also kind of realized that a lot of people are interested in the hub and spoke program, or are interested in trying to set up composting programs, but they don't really know where to start. So to help kind of provide both enrichment for you all, as well as create a foundational understanding of what's even involved in setting up a composting program, we're going to be hearing from Charleston, Greenville, and Horry counties on how they've been able to set their programs up. And so at this meeting, we're going to be again kind of seeing what all has gone into making those programs run, as well as discussing the feasibility of setting up more programs like that throughout the state, answering any questions that you have, as well as allowing folks to voice their concerns or ideas about what that would need to look like. We want to learn from you, but we also want to learn from or have you learn from each other? And we want to make sure that the grants moving forward are going to be able to actually be used in the end. And so also on February 25th, as a follow-up to that Hub and Spoke program interest meeting, we are going to be doing an in-person brainstorming meeting at our Columbia SCDES location. So that will be at 2600 Bull Street in Columbia, and that will be from 10 to 12 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Again, that's in person on February 25th. And I realized I forgot to put the time, but on the February 19th date, that is going to be from 10 to 11:30. So if you are interested in that, please let me know. If you have not already signed up, you can still go into the link that you accessed and RSVP'd for this meeting and sign up to join us for those meetings. So again, we will have some more time for questions, but if anybody has anything right now that pops into their mind, feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And Richard, if you want to speak any more about the Hub and Spoke grant, if I failed to include anything, please feel free to unmute yourself as well. And again, we'll have some time at the very end to discuss any questions, but with that, as you're letting that information sink in, I'm going to pass it over to Kayla to talk about our recycling education grants.
Hey everyone, so the Recycling Education Grant is for K through 12 schools. This can be for public or private, but it is not applicable to homeschoolers. The maximum award is $1,500. The grant period is from August until October. It's relatively short, but we just want to make sure the teachers have time kind of at the beginning of the year to apply and have their projects planned out for the remaining school year. So funds can be used for starting recycling program at school, whether it's building up an existing program or starting one from scratch. Composting, that kind of goes hand in hand with doing a garden. Composting is a really great way to get the kids outside, and they tend to really love that. Recycling focused field trips. So I've had some schools request to use their funds to purchase a bus driver or lunch for the field trip day, and then they'll go to a recycling facility or a landfill, something like that. Those tours are becoming more and more rare, but we do still get requests for those. And then materials for Take Action SC lessons. Take Action SC is a free program for South Carolina schools, but if you received the curriculum and you want to do lessons after the presenters come to your classroom, you're more than welcome to use funds to buy materials for lessons about recycling, composting, things like that. We also highly encourage share tables within cafeterias to reduce food waste. This is pretty simple. You can just have, even just in one classroom even, but usually setting up a table, little buckets where you can put fruit, packaged food that won't go bad, or unopened milk. They're just required to be maintained at a certain temperature, but that is a great way to use funds. And you can go to the next slide. So I mentioned Take Action SC Partnership Program. This program promotes environmental education for K through 12 schools. So really the centerpiece of our program is the Action for Cleaner Tomorrow curriculum. We have 32 lessons within the curriculum that align to solid waste reduction, recycling, composting. All of these lessons are correlated to the South Carolina College and Career Ready Science Standards. So it's a pretty unique feature about our program. We don't see that anywhere else across the country. We're pretty unique in that way. All of the lessons can be adapted to any grade level. And then classroom presentations and teacher workshop trainings are available free of charge. You can go to our website, takeactionsc.org, and schedule with a local county educator. We have educators across the state who are assigned to different counties. So definitely check out the educator in your county, connect with them. They might have some awesome opportunities to work together and get into the schools. And next up is Savannah.
Alrighty, hello. So I don't see many colleges are in attendance, so I'm gonna make this quick. So we have up to $10,000 for public and private colleges. Um, Last year in the fiscal year 25-26, we had 10 colleges apply and get awarded grants, and that was we gave $89,176 to those schools. 2,500 of which can be used for professional development. Funding, like the schools, can be used for recycling programs or waste reduction efforts, including composting as well as food waste collection. And then our new fiscal year 27 application is available in March, should say 26. So in a few weeks, that should be coming out. That's all I got.
Thank you, Savannah and Kayla. And just to kind of point out, so with the school grants, that is on the same fiscal year system as what our or excuse me, with the college and university grants, that is on the same cycle as what we are. And the school grants are, that may change, but I think typically they become available in August, but we're hoping to kind of shift that up more in July so that they can start the school year off with a grant in place. And then let's see, the other thing, talking about hub and spoke, we did invite colleges and universities to be on that future call, as well as today, because there could be some opportunities to partner with colleges and universities, as well as a couple other agencies, to help with doing some hub and spoke programs. And let's see, Vernon, you were saying, is that $1,500 per school for the K through 12? And yes, that is the case. And districts, and Kayla, correct me if I'm wrong, a district can apply for all of the schools in their district, and each of the schools would get up to $1,500 a piece. Is that correct, Kayla?
Yes, that's correct. And if a county wants to apply for multiple schools, we just ask that you submit your application as if you were applying for each school, and you can just group those together. So I can work with you one-on-one if you know a county that's interested in that.
All right, thank you, Savannah and Kayla. So we're going to go on to waste tire grant. So we're going to hear back from Woody.
All right. So the waste tire program, lots of changes going on. It's a very fluid situation here with the waste tires and waste tire grants. We had let's see, what we got here. All counties are required to manage the waste tires generated in their county. The sources for tire management funding, the $2 fee on new or used replacement tires, and then the tipping fees assessed by counties for undocumented tires. And now our waste tire grants are considered shortfall grants. So what that means basically is if the DOR fees that you receive and the tipping fees that you receive aren't enough to cover your contractor costs, then you can draw from this waste tire grant to help cover that shortfall. So that's how the waste tire grant program is set up. Let me get to the next slide. Let me see what we got there. So waste tire management, it's important to have a good guidance or policy in place so you can inform your residents on, what times your tires are accepted, and the fees that the county charge for undocumented tires. So the waste tire grants at this time, can only be used for contractor costs associated with waste tire recycling and hauling by SCDS registered haulers to SCDS approved recyclers. Part of the issue, I'm just trying to figure out how to jump into all this because, like I say, with the new law, there's been some changes in terms of the funding and how the fees get what percentage of the fees are dispersed to the counties, and then so it's very fluid. We've only had 2 quarters of disbursements at this point. And with the first quarter, I mean, it looked great. I think in the past, the total county disbursements were around maybe a little more than $800,000. And then in the first quarter of the fiscal year, boom, it jumped up to like 1.2 million. And we thought, oh, this is great. And we were looking at the fee structure and the amount of fees that were collected for August, for July, August, and September. Each month, it was increasing more and more and more. So, and you would kind of expect that because for one, with the used tire retailers now having to pay into the fund, we figured as more and more of those got on board and started paying their fees, that the funding would increase, and we were kind of seeing that. And then the second quarter hit, and in case you haven't heard, there was another tire refund issued by the Department of Revenue that it basically cut in half what the counties had received in the first quarter, and for DES for that matter. So I bring this up to say, in terms of the grants, it's going to be pretty difficult, I think, to project what your funding will be like for the waste tire program in FY27. So that's one of the issues that we're dealing with. Like I say, you may not have heard about this. I'd asked the state treasurer's office to send a notice out to the counties about the refund. They did that 2 days ago. So they were sending a letter to all the county treasurer's offices about the refund. And so you should be getting more information about that soon. So I just it's going to be a difficult time in trying to project the funds that we have available for grants, and you trying to project the funds that you might need from the grant. So we'll just have to do the best we can using the data that we have. And then, if we underestimate some things or, overestimate some things, then we'll just have to make adjustments as we go along. We still, as I mentioned with the used oil grants, we have the ability to modify some of these grants. And so, it may be a situation where we have to make some modifications to the grants as we go along. And if that's what we have to do, then that's what we'll have to do. All right. What's the next slide here? Recent cuts, waste tire grant funding. So, yeah, from in FY23, we used to provide professional development funds and public education funds in the waste tire grant, but due to budget constraints, we had chopped that out in FY23, and then on top of that, the waste tire grant requests were reduced by 20%. I'll put a caveat on that. Not necessarily waste tire grant requests, but I review all of the requests when they come in, compare it to the quarterly reports and things, just to make sure that that the amounts that you're requesting are good eligible amounts. Then FY24, we had to reduce those by 30%. Same thing in FY25. Last year, they were reduced 28%. So in FY26, I think South Carolina counties requested $4 million in grant funds. We were able to award 2.24, and there again, that's kind of adjusted for the eligibility that I spoke about, because obviously 2.24 is a lot less than 28%, or a lot more was chopped out than 28% in that situation. But like I said, I have to evaluate these worksheets, the worksheet that you get, compare it with historical data, and then kind of determine what the eligibility should be. All right, so next slide, please. Some of the programs. So this is in the waste tire. If you're dealing with a lot of illegal tire piles in your county, we have this program that we've worked out with Palmetto Pride. This See It, Report It campaign. These billboards. The great thing about the billboard campaign is that it can be changed, or billboards can be moved around. So if you're having a particular problem with illegal tire piles in your county, talk with the folks at Palmetto Pride, and they may be able to take one of these billboards and move it somewhere to within your county to help with the situation. All right, next slide. So we talked about Act 33 that was signed by the governor in May of 2025. It amended a couple of different laws, predominantly the Solid Waste Act, which covers a lot of the fees and the tire management aspects of the program. Title 39, Chapter 75 was revised. You may not be as familiar with that, but it deals more with regroovable tires, some of the safety aspects. There was some new language added in terms of waste tire hauler registrations there. And so, but I would say, your biggest concern, or you want to get familiar with the changes in the Solid Waste Act concerning tires. Next slide. Okay, so the changes to the Solid Waste Act. I mentioned the $2 fee, and is now on, it's being distributed a little bit differently. In the past, retailers used to keep a piece of that $2 fee, and that was eliminated. So now all the fees are being divided between the counties, what the counties receive, and DES. So the counties are getting 75% of those funds. DES is getting 25%. And from that 25% is what we use to run the program and to issue the shortfall grants. What we anticipate is that, if the counties are able to charge more in tipping fees, and that was also in the legislation, is that the counties can now charge more for the in tipping fees for waste tires. You would think, in theory, that if the counties are able to charge more in tipping fees and the counties are receiving more of the tire fee, that they would have less reliance on the waste tire grant to cover shortfalls. So so we anticipate, if that comes to fruition, that we can start using some of those grant funds towards they can be offered to private and corporate entities. Now, what I would expect, I say we've got a budget, or we've been operating on a budget like $2.3 million for the waste tire grants. Obviously, that's not going to totally go away, and we don't anticipate making those grants available to private companies to build new facilities or that types of things. More than likely, it would go towards incentivizing the purchase of products made from recycled tire content. So a lot of this is still up in the air and to be determined. The legislation wants us to create a work group, kind of an infrastructure oversight group that can kind of prioritize what the needs are in South Carolina in terms of enhancing our markets. And then the grants, would follow that direction. So that's kind of the plan, but we're still ways from getting a lot of that in place, and that's what we're working towards. So let's get to the next slide. The applications. So the application, itself, the grant amounts are determined by the worksheet that I mentioned. So you're going to have to do the best you can in terms of projecting. And I think we've got an example of a tire worksheet coming up in the presentation. But yeah, so you're going to look at the historical aspects of your program. How many tires you collected in the previous year. One of the things is what your collections and what your fees are for. When you apply for this grant, you're only going to have like 2 quarters of data, and that data is going to be kind of skewed because of this refund now. But you in the past, what we've done, and I guess we just have to do the same thing, is just look at the fees that you've received in the first 2 quarters and double that, and that'll be your projection for the current year, and then we'll make that also your projection for the next year. So in your grants, your funding is obtained through reimbursement requests. So if you have a shortfall, then you just submit your reimbursement request along with the invoices from your waste tire haulers or processors. And let's see, grantees that charge the maximum tipping fee. So yeah, we're going to look, you need to be charging tipping fees for tires, if you're accepting tires from retailers or that type of thing. Make sure you're charging the maximum tipping fee that you can or try to. And that's going to help with the program. If your county doesn't charge tipping fee, you're kind of taken away from everybody else with the program. So you need to look at that and do the best you can as far as what your county's policy will be in accepting retailer tires. There's I mentioned the new legislation. You have, if the counties want to, let's say you want to totally get out of the waste tire program in terms of retailers. I mean, you have an option for doing that. Obviously, the best deterrent to receiving tires from retailers would be to charge, as much a large fee. So when you can charge up to, if you have an ordinance in place, you can charge up to $400 per ton for tires, even if they have the documentation. Now, if you're receiving tires that are undocumented, you can charge up to $400 a ton for those tires. But if you have an ordinance in place that you don't accept tires from retailers, then if by chance they show up at your gate, then you have the option to charge them up to $400 a ton for those tires if you have an ordinance in place. Now, if you just have a policy, then the maximum you could charge for those would be $150 per ton. But that's still more than what we had before, because for documented tires before the legislation, you couldn't charge anything for those tires. So yeah, things have changed, and things are still changing, and we're trying to keep up and adjust as we go along. All right, so next slide, please. This is that tire fee worksheet I mentioned. Yeah, so you've got your FY25 numbers you can plug in there. Your FY26, your anticipated, and that's where I say you take your first 2 quarters and you double it, and then that'll be your anticipated for FY27. The only changes there might be, say, if your contractor costs have increased or something like that, that might make that figure a little bit more than FY26. Good news on that front, though, is that we're getting more tire processors permitted in South Carolina. I'd been told by our permitting folks that we had a new tire recycler that had applied and been granted the permits for their operations. And then the gentleman called me just a few minutes before the webinar today, and he wants me to come out and see their facilities. And I think they're based in St. Matthews, but they've also going to have a plant, or they have a plant in Columbia as well. And so they're going to be taking tires. They're going to be producing all kind of products from those tires, crumb rubber. They're also going to be producing micronized rubber powder, which is big for the rubber modified asphalt applications. This new dry mix process, DOT is on board with it. They've been doing a lot of research at the National Center for Asphalt Technology. And I was on a webinar yesterday where I got to hear from Dr. Lyons with SCDOT, and they're all on board with it, and they feel like we've got everything in place now to really move forward with rubber modified asphalt in South Carolina. I would encourage the counties. I don't know if if we have folks on the call that are involved directly with paving projects in the county, but I would say look into it because it's affordable. It's more affordable now than it's ever been in terms of paving with rubber modified asphalt, and the research has been great on it. SCDOT is now is approving those mixes, so it's going to be great because for sure the roads in South Carolina need it. And this rubber modified asphalt is, a lot of advantages to it. It lasts longer than the regular asphalt. It has less tire wear particles from when you're driving on rubber modified asphalt. So there's just a lot of advantages to it, and we're hoping to see it take off in South Carolina as it is in states throughout the Southeast. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Reminder. So I guess that's it for the waste tire grants. You want to take some questions, or want to keep going?
We can, for time's sake, let's keep going, and then we'll open the floor for some more questions. But we did have Vernon pipe in saying, will you send out their information to the new tire hauler? So if you have that ability, Woody, that would be great. And I think we did in the original invite to this meeting, I did put that there were two tire webinars that Woody mentioned. One happened yesterday, and then I think there's another one coming up on either the 25th or the 24th or 25th of February. So feel free to join those webinars and just kind of use it as a way of learning more about some other opportunities outside of DES for your agencies. So we wanted to go over a few reminders for just the grant writing process, and then also go over, once you are awarded a grant, what are the steps with that? And so just for both your sake as well as our sake, here are some tips for a strong grant, or what we see as a strong grant. So first is make sure that you follow the structure of our grant questions. So I think with each of the grants applications, there's going to be a breakdown of what you can apply for within the grant, kind of the goal of the grant, and then also a list of questions. The best thing to do is just kind of follow that list. And even if you want to do not do bullets, but like number which ones they are that you're answering, that can be helpful. Also, make sure that you're answering all those questions fully. Include a detailed budget that lists the total request. So again, we have had it in the past where people did not give us the total. They had us kind of do the total, and we got the number wrong that they were requesting. So make sure that when you are doing your budget, that it lists out all the items, as well as what's going to be charged for those items, or how much you want to allot for that, and then give us the total that you are requesting. Also, do your research. It's good to list out the vendors that you're going to be using, as well as the supplies cost, and that's going to help you with determining your budgets. So when you are including details, sometimes people can include or over include information, and that can make it to where it's not as efficient or as effective in terms of getting the point across. So try to just be clear and concise with everything. Also, when you are submitting your information or sending us your files, for not just the application, but your quarterly reports or your reimbursements, make sure that the subject line includes what's going to be in the email. This can help us with going through a very active email account that 4 people have access to. So we don't want anything to be lost, and when we have to go and search for information, it's good to have that subject line well defined. Also, when you are attaching your files, make sure that they are appropriately named. A lot of people will just say SWG or SW grant, but they don't put their county. So put your county or city name, as well as what that file is actually about. That can help us with making it to where we don't lose or get confused about what file belongs to whom. Please do not have random numbers in the file name or the subject line. I know sometimes people will end up scanning things, but scan it to yourself first if possible, rename that file, and then send it to us, because again, we just don't want things to be lost accidentally. And essentially, if it gets lost, then it slows down your grant using process. Also, when you are sending in quarterly reports, we ask that you send them in as individual files. So send one in for SW grants, one in for the used oil, one in for the waste tire. They can all be on the same email, but just please have them in separate file names. So again, as I said, do not combine those quarterly reports. And then and this is just kind of a visual example of how best to send them in. Woody was doing a mock example, so as you see, he included a good note about himself as well. So again, 3 individual files for each of the 3 grants that you could potentially receive, as well as the county name, the fiscal year, and then also what the grant is. That can be quite helpful. And then we're going to go over the different forms that you would be having to receive. So when we start off, if you are awarded a grant, we will send you a start letter. And within this grant, it will tell you, what year, or excuse me, like what the fiscal year is, when the start date begins, when the start date ends, as well as kind of the amount that you have been approved. We need this start letter to be, or excuse me, before the start letter can begin, we have to have your grant agreement that is signed by your authorized representative. And before you can actually have your grant start, we have to have a confirmation that we have received your grant agreement that has been signed. And so whenever we receive that signed grant agreement, we will then send you this start letter form that will have the date that it is starting. So even though the grants technically can start on July 1st, your start date could be different, because it starts technically when you have whatever date that authorized representative has put on that grant agreement. So if you submit your grant agreement that is signed on, let's say, August 5th, then that's when you would officially be starting. And you can't purchase anything until we have that signed grant agreement. So with once you get your start letter, you can officially start trying to purchase things, but there are some things that require approval before you can purchase them. One of those is your promotional or educational material. So this is the sheet that is used when folks are trying to get approval to use our grant funds to purchase outreach material. You can combine grants. So again, used oil and solid waste can be combined on one form if you're going to be using those funds to cover different parts of or excuse me, different parts of those funds to cover that material. We do ask that you only put one item per form. And there is a place where you can provide a description about that item. So if it's something that you need us to create a graphic design for it, please list out what you want included on that graphic design, especially, you know, what that sizing is. And then if you do end up providing, or excuse me, purchasing anything that is outreach or education material, it does have to have the funded by SCDES logo on it. So before you can go and actually start purchasing anything, you need to make sure that you have submitted this form and that it has been approved by our office. And you don't have to, if you have a graphic design group within your agency, and you plan to use SCDES funds for printing out that material, it still would need to be approved by us. So whether or not we're creating the graphic design or you are, it still needs to be approved by us before you use the funding that we've allotted for it. So the deadline for having any of your outreach material approved is by December 1st, 2026. So so anything past December 1st, you wouldn't be able to purchase. So please keep that date in mind. Okay, so our professional development approval form. So as we said, this year we're going to be moving forward, having you all request that $750 on your application. It won't be automatically given. So once you are allotted that amount in your application, or excuse me, in your grant agreement, if you are wanting to use those funds before you go on any trip or before you go on to any conference, we need to make sure that that you have approval first. So you can submit your form, which is this form that's shown, to the SW Grants web, or swgrants@des.sc.gov email address. Please include your travel descriptions as well as the cost. So show, you know, what the registration fee is. We can cover lodging, but it has to be within that GSA rate. Transportation can be covered, as well as some meals based off of the South Carolina allowance on the form, as you see. And then if you can provide us with the event agenda and brochure, we would need that to show that it is actually going to be talking about recycling, composting, food waste prevention, or some type of like used oil or tire part within the event. And you can use your used oil and your solid waste money combined to help with covering the different types of professional development opportunities. And so I'm going to give the floor over to Woody to talk about some of our other grant forms. So he's going to cover our reimbursement forms.
Okay, yeah, so the reimbursement forms, you know, depending on which program we're working with, well, especially for waste tires, they can get quite busy and tedious. And you look at the form there, and there's only, what, 7, maybe 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slots there. So occasionally you may have more invoices to submit than you have lines on the form. So to kind of get around that, it's quite all right to attach a second page that lists all the invoices, but your second page, still needs to have all the data that's asked for on this form. So your invoice number, invoice date, vendor, the amount, description. So just make sure that that data is provided on your attachment if you need additional forms. You know, a lot of what you know, just take an extra second, check your math, because That's one type of error that we get is the numbers don't add up. The other is just make sure you're filling out all the spaces. Put the numbers in. You got the original grant amount, prior reimbursements. This one is for tires. No, this is this reimbursement, not tires. All the reimbursement form, use the same one for all the grants. But yeah, so you want to include all that. I still get some of the older forms submitted. We've changed, our form has changed a little bit in that we now use FRs instead of purchase orders. So just make sure you're using the most recent reimbursement form so when I go to fill it out, I've got spaces for the FR number, the vendor number. That's kind of one thing that changed, and that's not something that you would fill out. That's something that we fill out here, but I need you to use the correct form, and it'll make it a lot easier on me when I'm dealing with the reimbursements. Let's see. Vendor account address and skis. Yeah, that's another common issue that we have. You look down there at the bottom when the grantee, you want to put in as your address the address that we have in skis for your vendor account. So it may be different than the office that you're working from. Maybe it's the address for the finance office, but just make sure that you're using the address that we have in skis. Yeah, and then 45. So you can submit reimbursements throughout the grant cycle. The deadline would be 45 days after the grant cycle ends. So as long as you get your reimbursements in before then, they'll be fine. And you want a copy with your reimbursement form. You got to provide the copy of the invoices, and really all we need is this form and the copy of the invoices. We get a lot of bank statements, canceled checks, those type. We don't need any of that, any other kind of proof of payment or anything like that. We just need the form and the invoices. Okay. The minority business form, I don't know that I've received any of these forms, to tell you the truth, so I can't really comment much on the minority business form. Quarterly reports. I do take in these reports a lot of times. We'll read the reports. If you have any problems or issues, you want to put that in in your report. If you in your collections, when you're reporting the time, collections, with the especially with the used oil grant reporting, include the units of measure on your form, so we'll know if we're talking about tons or we're talking about gallons, that type of thing. Let's see, due dates for all the grants. Yeah, so the 15th. So when the quarter ends, the 15th of the following month, that's the deadline for submitting your quarterly reports. This one particularly, quarter report for used oil. I don't really have a lot of issues on the forms, and for the most part, it's like say Grace Ann had mentioned, just if you give that file a good name when you submit it to us in the email, so we'll know, if you want to use. We use a lot of times for waste oil grant, we'll use WOG or FY2027 WOG or FY2027 WTG for waste tire grant, FY2027 SWG for solid waste grant. Those are some of the things that we use internally, and if you want to use those, that'd be great for identifying the files. And because a lot of times we may, if you got a change in the county, a new recycling coordinator, somebody's in place, and they're having issues trying to figure out what they need to submit. It's easy for us to. A lot of times we can we can go back and reply and send you the reports that were submitted previously, and that'll help someone with knowing what they need to report. All right. And then a quarterly report for the waste tire. Just make sure you've got something in all the blanks. That one of the issues that we have with the quarterly reporting on waste tires is, we got this 15th of the month following the quarter, end of the quarter. Well, for waste tires, you're not going to know your DOR disbursements by the 15th of the following month. For a lot of times, let's say January, February, March, for that quarter, the fees that are collected by DOR in March, the deadline for the retailers to report those fees is April the 20th. So, your DOR disbursements aren't going to be available until after that date anyway. So it's not uncommon to get late submittal on the waste tire reports, and that's fine. If you want to submit your waste tire report early and just leave that blank on the for the DOR, I can add it when the data is available and send you a revised copy for your records. But I would say it is important that these reports, they kind of build on the quarter. Each one builds on the previous quarter. So you need to make sure you have that data. If you're submitting your quarterly report for the third quarter, make sure you've got the data that was submitted for the first and second quarter included in the report. All right. So that was kind of quick rundown there on the forms. And I guess we've made it to the end of the presentation here. What time did we have allotted for this today, Grace Ann? It was an hour and a half. Are we right on time?
We're over 2 minutes, but
wow,
man,
that's
we almost
amazing.
made it. But we did have
Yeah.
some technical difficulties at the beginning, so we'll blame it on that.
Okay.
But I did want also to just kind of, well, I see Wendy, you have your hand up, and I'm gonna unmute you in just a sec. But before I did, Richard, would you like to say anything before we open the floor for questions? And if you need to come down to my office to get access to the mic, feel free to. But I think as we wait for Richard, I was going to just quickly let some folks be able to ask questions. It looks like Wendy, let's see. I don't know. Wendy must have accidentally fallen off. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to raise your hands, and we can go ahead and start discussing that. And again, as a reminder, oh, and here's Richard. But as a reminder, we are going to be having 2 more meetings. One is going to be February 19th, so next Thursday. That will be virtual. And then we're going to have that be to discuss the Hub and Spoke program and hear from Greenville, Charleston, as well as Horry County about their composting. And we will have some other composters on the on the call. And then February 25th, that will be our in-person discussion for Hub and Spoke systems, and that will be in our Columbia office. And Sally, I do see your comment. I will open the floor to you, but I'm going to let Richard speak really quickly, and then we'll have you share as well.
Sally, I'm sorry, Sally first or me?
You can go. Yeah.
Oh, well. Hey, everybody. Again, conspiracy that muted my speaker for some reason. But anyway, just kidding. The couple of things, any vendors or any that we have on this call or we mentioned, remember, we're not endorsing everyone. We're just providing information on vendors that we know about and that you may be able to use, just to be careful. But I also want to remind reinforce on the hub and spoke grant, which we probably are going to come up with a better name. Most of the blame goes to me on obviously we're not making ourselves clear on this, and part of the issue too is we're asking counties to take a huge leap on this program or on this idea, and with a commitment to make it work, including money. Um, we do think it will work, and that's why we're going back almost to step one, where we'll talk to you about, again, what do you need, what do you want, what would work, what won't work. And that's why we're having these meetings. We will have some vendors on there, and which are entirely welcome and their expertise. We're also looking at maybe doing a quick have an outside consultant do a quick study. I'm talking about maybe 2 months to reinforce or to collect and then give us information on infrastructure and amounts, and also recommendations of what we could do to make the hub and spoke work. I am currently working on our MSW waste characterizations, where MSW characterization study is almost done. In fact, I was working on key takeaways and sending them to the vendor and getting all that double checked and finalized. Clearly, unwanted food waste going to the landfill is the number one item. I will tell you too that looking at other studies already done, like Maine and New Hampshire and some others, it's consistent nationwide, which is one of the reasons we're not alone, but one of the reasons we're prioritizing trying to divert food waste, unwanted food to landfill disposal. We're trying to get it prevented, if not prevented, donated, and at that point, an infrastructure in place that can turn it into a valuable product and helps not only the environment but the state's economy. But we will have, after these discussions, Grace Ann and I and Savannah will be working on I hope just a 1 or 2 page reference sheet that you can look at. We'll send you a draft that you can look at to see what other questions you may have, or if this application makes sense, etc. But that's it. Quick and dirty. Thank you for again being on the call.
All right, and then
Sally?
we are going to have Sally. So Sally Williams, you should be unmuted now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. For those of you that may not know me, I'm Sally Williams. I'm, I guess, the bad cop to Richard's good cop over here in the regulatory side. But some of you may have gotten an email from me this week for the Solid Waste Hurricane Helene grant opportunity that went out to some of the eligible counties. And I have gotten questions that are all great questions. That ends on April 3rd. And please bear with me, as this will be my first grant process. And Richard's group is graciously helping me stumble through the process, especially since we're shorthanded with Steph retiring. But if you have questions or anything, please feel free to give me a call. This one is a little bit different than the solid waste grants. However, it is a lot like the solid waste grants. So Justin Kuhn and I will be traveling to some counties to do some outreach with this grant as well. So again, if you have any specific questions or anything, I can put my email and phone number in the chat. I don't want to take up too much of your time if you're ready to eat lunch. But just wanted to put that out there, that is available to the 33 counties that were affected by Hurricane Helene.
Thank you, Sally. And I did see Leslie Hatchell put in, is it possible to provide us with grant application forms without so much formatting that are easier to complete? We usually have to copy and paste into a Word document and then formatting is off. So yes, Leslie, I can send you the original Word document and that way you can kind of move from there if you'd like.
And anyone else?
Yes, yeah, I'll plan to send it out to those. And I do want to clarify, so I did invite people or like all of our contacts to be part of this call, but in order for you to be eligible to apply for these grants, you have to provide us with your full cost disclosure. So you can send that to Kyle Clark, excuse me, yes, Kyle Clark, who is part of Sally's team. And his email address is kyle.clark at des.se.gov. Also, you have to submit your past fiscal year, so fiscal year 2025, recycling residential data. And so that's different from your quarterly report. And that information would need to go to Katie Deal. So her email address is Catherine deal, which Sally, if you wouldn't mind putting it into the chat at des.se.gov. So those are two requirements in order to be able to apply for these grants, but we did want to let those who may not be as familiar with the grant application process or needed to wipe away some cobwebs to have the chance to do that this year. And I think Katie is starting to work on the fiscal year 25 data, so you'd have to reach out to her directly and ask if it would be possible to add in to put in data, but it may be too late this year. So with that said, I haven't seen any hands up, but I wanted to see if anybody did have any questions. And again, if you have anything that is specific or if it comes up later, we're always willing to help you answer questions, or if you want to brainstorm an idea or clarify if this is an idea that would be feasible in our mind. You are welcome to get in touch with us, or we can connect you with some other counties or cities. All right, Randolph, I see that you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you, so you should be able to speak. Randolph, I think I've unmuted you, so if you want to go ahead and speak, or excuse me, I've allowed you to have microphone access. If you want to unmute yourself and speak, that would be fine.
Mine wouldn't do that when you allowed me.
Oh, man, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Let me try this again. All right. Sorry, Teams is not allowing me. Just a sec. Okay, Randolph, let's see if this allows you to speak.
Okay, I think there we go.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you, Grace. My question was, in submitting the full cost and the recycling information, do we need to send that in additional to what we already submitted, or that can be pulled from the retract?
So what you put, and Sally, you may have to speak about this a little bit more than I do, but your full cost disclosure as well as your residential recycling report, those can go directly into retrack, or if for some reason you don't have the ability to do that, then you can reach out directly to Kyle or to Katie. Yeah, Sally, do you want to speak to that anymore?
Yeah, Grayson, you're correct in that. I believe that Kyle and I did talk about that, because I think sometimes the public notice portion that you end up emailing, because if you put information into retrack, it will, I guess, complete the form. And instead of Kyle going back in and opening it back up, I think people are just emailing it in. So that's something internally that we're working on with retrack that we might be able to help with. But usually you can submit your full cost information in retrack and then send the public notice through email is, I think, typically what we're receiving.
Okay, because I do both, and I was just wondering if that was something that changed that I needed to now submit it again with the grants. But I do use retract, and it's all the data that's in there, and I do submit it during the time that it's required. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't need to resend it again with the grants. That's all.
Oh, no, I think, Grace Ann, if I'm correct, we talk internally, so we just check with each other to make sure that the county is eligible. So no, I don't think you would have to resubmit it.
Well, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Randolph is with the city of Sumter, so I don't know how that, versus Sumter County versus city of Sumter, and I'm sure other municipalities, have that, that, I guess, issue with the structure.
Yeah, and I think, and Sally, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but just speaking with Katie, it sounds like some cities will individually go in to retrack and have an account and set, or excuse me, and submit their information, and then other counties will end up just reporting directly to the county, so then the county will put their information in. So that I think that there are some differences in kind of how cities and counties end up handling things. So we just that's something that, in the past when Steph was covering the grants, she would kind of do that quietly. And so this year Woody and I and have been trying to make sure that we kind of cover all of our bases with covering some of those responsibilities. So that's what we were trying to make that clear to everybody that if they were missing things, that they may not be able to be eligible for this year's grant. But thank you for your question, Randolph.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions? I'm not sure how that happened, but somehow Richard's little head started clapping, and he's not in his office right now. I think somebody has gone into Richard's office. So you know what? Good lesson on making sure you lock your computer screen.
I could have a good guess on who that is, Grace Ann.
But thank you all so much for your time. I know we went over a little bit, but I hope that this was helpful information. If not, please let us know and we will restructure this for next year. We do have this recorded, so if you have coworkers who were not able to be part of the call, I will be sending this out soon. So you are welcome to share it with your team. And again, we're here to help. So please reach out if you have any questions. So thank y'all.
Can I say one thing?
One more thing from Richard.
Completely nothing to do with what we just talked about. We had asked you earlier, and we're trying to put together a poster with all the recycling programs on it. We're not sure how to do that yet. One of the things we were counting on is most of you would have logos. We have pictures, but logos. And a lot of you have just the county logos. If you want a logo developed that you would be allowed to use in addition to your county logo, we would be delighted to do that, to emphasize your recycling program. We were just trying to get everybody on this poster that had a program, and we want to be fair about it. So bottom line is, no big deal either way. If you want to, great. If you can't, no worries. If you want to have a logo developed for your recycling program to draw attention to it, we'll be glad to do it. Thanks.
Well, thank y'all for your time. Again, feel free to reach out for the graphic design that Richard just mentioned, or for grant support or anything else. Yay. That's why we're here. So we appreciate y'all and all the hard work that you do, and we will let you go have some lunch now. So thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.